This is the final word, Australia West Indies Daily, day one from the Gabba, the Jabba, the Wollongabba in Brisbane. Jeff Lemon and Bharat Sundaresan. The show brought to you by CBUS super.com.au if you want to find them on the internet. And the way that we kick off this show each and every time is that you, Bharat, or somebody, or I tell you, or you tell me, but today you're going to tell me about an entire day of Test cricket in the space of 30 seconds.
Craig Brathwaite wins the toss, gets out very cheaply. Mitchell Starc rips through West Indies' top and middle order. They're 5 for 64 in all sorts of trouble at the lunch break. You think it's all over for them. Then Kavem, Hodge and Joshua De Silva put on the highest partnership ever against Australia in a pink ball test, 149. Give them hope. Alzari Joseph comes in there, throws his bat around against the new ball. 8 for 266. West Indies' day. Rally round the West Indies.
West Indies Day, yeah, sort of, kind of. I could see this going one of two ways. I mean, they could easily be all out tomorrow for 280, or even if they got to 300, you'd think that 300 would probably not be enough, given that it was relatively easy to bat during the middle session with the older ball. But you never know. If you're 300 in front, you give yourself an opportunity. And my goodness, it just looked like it was going to be another procession. It was another procession, a top order procession, like it was in Adelaide, which was Hazelwood comes on and bowls and gets a wicket before too long. Cummins picks one up. Then Starc picks up 3 in a row, and they were all sort of flirts outside the off stump. I mean, a couple of the shots were more culpable than others. I guess Mackenzie's shot was poor, and Chanderpaul. I mean, Chanderpaul walks so far across his stumps that he plays at balls he absolutely doesn't need to, a la Steve Smith. But he looked pretty good up until that point. Chanderpaul hit a couple of boundaries, and he thought, well, okay, maybe he's got his rhythm going, but he's out for 21. Mackenzie's out for 21. Brathwaite's already been caught in the cordon for 4. I thought Brathwaite was the least culpable. He just got a good ball that angled in and moved away, and you've got to play the line, and that's what he did. And then Athanase caught behind off Starc, and then Justin Greaves just before the break caught it slip by Khawaja. So it was just feeding the cordon. It was Smith, Carey and Khawaja first slip, second slip, and the keeper taking the 5 catches. 5 down, 64 on the board as they go into the break. Graves falls in the last over before the break, and you're like, well, this is following a very predictable script. They'll be all out 110, and it'll be another, maybe it's over in 2 days, maybe it's over in 2.5 kind of affairs. And then that's been changed. That feels different now.
It has. Yes, and it told you 2 things. A, that the pitch is very docile, especially after that pink ball loses its hardness, which doesn't take more than 12-13 overs. And also that in Kavem, Hodge and Joshua De Silva, you have 2 guys who finally said, you know what, we will spend time out in the middle. We'll soak in the pressure, not succumb to succumb the way our top order did. And it was poor batting from the West Indian top and middle order, and some good bowling from the Australians that really led to the 5 for 64, more than the pitch really doing much or the pink ball really playing too many tricks. And like Mitchell Starc, like he does, I kept calling him the werewolf of cricket. Every time it's night cricket, he does turn deadlier and deadlier, even before it turns dark, even before the sun sets. Yeah. And he bowled one of those spells just before lunch. And again, full credit to the West Indies. Yes, they were the easiest batting conditions that they have faced on tour, maybe after the Karen Rolton over. And the 2 guys who stood up then for them were Kavem, Hodge, 50 and 99 in across the 2 innings, and Joshua De Silva opening the batting at the Karen Rolton made 100. So 2 guys who had spent time out there in the middle, and I thought they batted really well. And just the fact that they were able to drive the likes of Cummins and Hazelwood and even Starc on the up told you a lot about this surface and why I think the Australian batters will also have a lot of fun batting on it.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a surface that rewards patience as well. You weren't smacking the ball all over the place, at least not until Alzari Joseph came in at the end of the day. But I'll tell you what I enjoyed most about the Hodge De Silva partnership was craftsmanship. It was the fact that those 2 displayed a lot of patience, aside from De Silva still playing the pull shot too much, which every time he plays the pull shot, it makes me nervous. But he was, I guess the bounce was a little bit easier to read. It didn't have that same kind of lift that Adelaide occasionally had. He was able to play it down, get on top of the ball and play it down. But for the most part, they didn't play a lot outside the off stump. There were a couple of occasions. There was one for each of them where there was a ball from Stark, I think, that De Silva followed, and there was one might have been from from Green that Hodge followed, and both of them roundly chastised themselves after playing at a ball outside the off stump. You know, with the Hodge one, literally before the ball was in the keeper's gloves, he'd thrown his head back and he was shouting at himself, saying, "Don't play at that line, don't play." And that's what they did. They approached it with discipline. They were out there for a long period of time. They batted through the best part of 2 sessions. You know, they came together just after the break because the wicket had fallen in the last over before the break. So they come together with Hodges on 3 and the score's going nowhere. They took their time, but they didn't just Imam-ul-Haq it either. They didn't just block things out. And De Silva particularly grew into the strike rotation part of his game as the innings went on. So there were periods when Hodge got stuck. He sat on 50 for quite a long time. He sat on another score about 10 runs up from that for quite a long time. But De Silva kept finding a single relatively early in overs. If he got back on strike, he'd find another one. He was able to find those gaps. Didn't really play a lot of attacking shots and didn't have to. When he did, he played some really nice ones. And then that allowed Hodge to at least feel that the scoreboard was moving, and then he was able to play some aggressive shots here and there. But they chose the right balls to attack. They waited for full balls and they drove those through the covers. And there was the patience and application to actually bat in the way that you need to in Test cricket. They had the tempo of Test cricket down. De Silva 79, Hodge 71, and the only downside for them being that they were both dismissed late in the day when they would have been, they were so close to making it through to stumps and being able to start again the next afternoon.
And both got out in a fashion where, again, they chastised themselves a lot, and understandably. Joshua De Silva had played Nathan Lyon so beautifully, just tucking him around the corner and just using the angle and the turn well. There wasn't a lot of turn on offer to start with. But then he literally just missed a straight one, and Nathan Lyon has done that so often from around the wicket. And I was surprised Nathan Lyon didn't go around the wicket much sooner. He kept bowling over the wicket for long periods.
He swung back and forth a lot, though. He wasn't. Lyon wasn't comfortable with his line today. He kept moving it. There were overs that he started where he wasn't even sure at the start of the over which one he wanted to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely right, and I think that's it showed in his figures as well. With Nathan Lyon, you always can look. There are some spinners, some bowlers where you can look at their bowling figures, and even if you haven't seen them bowl, kind of get an idea of how they've gone. The fact that he didn't bowl too many maidens or any maidens at all is a sign of that. He looked a little unsettled. I think even someone like Kirk McKenzie taking him on early, hitting him for a 6, kind of put him off. And he didn't get any purchase at all with that pink ball on this pretty placid pitch. But then for Joshua De Silva to just miss that ball, 2 overs before they took the second new ball, I think hurt him. And then Hodge just gets a delivery that kind of hangs his bat and he gets out. And then I think, it's a, like you said, they just got the tempo right for Test cricket, and the fact that so many of their other batters have struggled to do that across 3 innings now kind of tells you where the difference lies between these two teams, right? There are a bunch of batters who've not only not played Test cricket, really don't understand the rhythm of Test cricket. And I was watching their training session, as I do, Jeff, a couple of days back, and you could see it. There's no real a rhyme or reason to a lot of things that they do. They just seem to go through the motions. And even if you look at their support staff, their coaching staff, they have Jimmy Adams, but nobody else who's really played Test cricket as a batter. Anyway, yes, they have Sean Tate, who played a handful of Tests. So there is nobody to guide them in terms of playing Test cricket. I mean, Justin Graves was doubling up as batting coach for some of the others because he's been playing first-class cricket for so long. So as impressive as De Silva and Hodge were, they hopefully might have kind of put on a live example, a live show for some of the other batters in the dressing room to how to go about Test batting. Yeah,
I'd take a different view on the dismissals in that, I mean, this is the way that Lyon's got so many wickets for so many years, is that he off spinner comes around the wicket, drifts the ball in, makes it pitch in line with the stumps and straighten. And you can be good at tucking it off the pads and you can harvest runs. You can be Yunus Khan and maybe you can make 250 against bowling like that. But most players eventually will miss one. And when you miss one, you're out. That's the Lyon jeopardy. True. That's what he brings because he's so consistent with that mode of attack. And so there was always that risk involved, and De Silva ends up making 79. And Hodge, I mean, I thought the Stark ball to Hodge was pretty much unplayable. And Stark bowled, he bowled a weird kind of spell with that new ball as well. Like he was spraying it all over the place at times. It was down leg. It was wildly across the off stump. There was one that pitched halfway towards Alex Carey. Like it was the huge full toss. But the one that he gets right to Hodge, swings into him, into the right-hander, then pitches and moves away. And I mean, what are you supposed to do? He's got to protect his pads. He's playing. He has to come across the line of the ball a bit to try to counter the swing, and then it moves away and takes the outside edge, almost a leading edge, because the bat face is closed. And Smith grabs another catch. He took 3 catches today in there.
3 catches today. Yep.
Yeah. So he's within three more catches away from Mark Waugh's Australian, it's not the all-time highest, but the second for Australians, but that sort of magical Mark Waugh slip-catching number. Anyway, magnificent performance from the two of them. 149 that they put on, the biggest West Indies partnership in Australia since Bravo and Dinesh Ramdin put on 30 more than that in 2005. And then before that, the sort of next comparable one was Lara and Robert Samuels in 1997. So they've only been, 2 partnerships in the last 25 plus 27 now years that have been approaching that sort of magnitude, which gives you a sense of what they did today. And then Kevin Sinclair, who I'm sure you'll speak about in a minute, came in and looked pretty bright and was taking them on a bit for his 16, and then kind of didn't need to anymore because Alzarri Joseph just came in and teed off 32 off 22 balls in the end. He was caught off Hazelwood in the last over of the day, another catch for Smith, but he'd smashed boundaries down the ground, slashed them over the slips, guided them through the cordon, ended up hitting 7 boundaries in his 32, so 28 of his 32 coming in hits to the fence. And he got Mitchell Starc pretty annoyed as well, who was mouthing off at him in the second last over before stumps.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, there's no point mouthing off at Alzarri Joseph. He, in his best days, you get absolutely nothing from him in terms of words. I've been bumping into him for the last 6-7 years. And I mean, if you're listening to this, you can't make out, but you have to watch the YouTube video. When I saw him for the first time at the Karen Roll, all I got was a raise of the eyebrows. Not even he didn't even flick. No other part of his body moved. He just raised 2 eyebrows. Right. That was him saying, "Hello, how are you doing?" So good to see you after your whole 12 months or so. So that's Alzarri Joseph. So Mitchell Starc was just wasting his breath there. But you could tell how frustrated the Australians were. It was a hot day. It was a steamy day. Just, I drove here with Crash Craddock, and he's parked the car really far away because you couldn't find parking, poor Crash. But you could feel the heat on you. And it was a kind of day, I think the Australian fast bowlers would have wished that Pat Cummins wins the toss and elects to bat. He did lose the toss, as it turned out, because it was that kind of day. So you could see that even in Pat Cummins in his last spell, you could see the effect of the heat and the humidity on him. Yeah. And it's one of the rare occasions this summer where the Australian fast bowlers have had to come and bowl late in the day on a day like today. But yeah, I mean, Kevin Sinclair you spoke about. I think if anything is maybe I know Shamar Joseph became the story of Adelaide, but the Kevin Sinclair story is even more close to my heart, and since it's my favorite story of the tour. From where he comes, and he walks, as soon as he walked out to bat at night, I was like, hey, this is what his grandpa Carlton had prepared him for, because if you've read my story, you'll know that when Grandpa Carlton as he's called, used to train young Kevin in his backyard, they had this big mango tree which they would bend in a way and tie it to the other end of the backyard, and then put lights on it so that Kevin Sinclair could be batting till 2 a.m. So batting at night is something Kevin Sinclair is used to. And just seeing him play that straight drive of Starc, wasn't it? And just hold the post and run at the bowler. You could see how much he was enjoying himself. But so were Hodge and so was Joshua De Silva. But yeah, Alzarri Joseph, I think that little partnership, 42 or whatever, just took it from being an annoying day for Australia from where they were after the lunch break to making it really frustrating and giving West Indies a chance of getting as close to 300, 320 as possible. And from where I'm sat, I can see Joshua Da Silva leave the ground with Usman Khawaja and Pat Cummins, and they seem very impressed with what he did. I can only see their backs as they walk away, but he seems to be explaining to them how he built that wonderful innings up.
I loved the Kavem Hodge, the cover drive where he just held the check drive where he just held the pose for a good 3 or 4 seconds afterwards. And De Silva, much less demonstrative, much more sort of practical cover driver. He'd get forward and barely follow through, but was able to strike the ball away. So 4 for 68 for Mitchell Starc, 2 for 32 Josh Hazlewood. Cummins got a wicket, Lyon got a wicket, and Starc and a chance for a 5 for tomorrow with a couple of wickets left to take. I think I said 3 earlier, but only 2 because they're 8 down. They'll be hoping West Indies to bat through as much of that first session in the hottest part of the day as possible, so they're not going to have to bowl in it, although it will be the bowlers batting. It'll be Kevin Sinclair with Kemo Roach and Shamar Joseph, who must have a superstitious attachment to number 11 because he's not been moved up the order. And also notable that, I know it's because they play so much pink ball cricket, but the Australian bowling attack tonight, the principal 4 are the 4 highest wicket takers in day-night test history, and they're all playing together in the one day-night test, which is something that stands out. Okay, let's take ourselves to the Final Word Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame, where we choose our most final word moments of the day, is brought to you by CBUS Super. It is their 40th birthday this year, the great superannuation company that's been looking after Australians for the course of those 4 decades, over 900,000 members that they have in their stable, and they're all about investing back into the industries that they support, the building and construction industry particularly. So a lot of the members' money that comes in gets invested in those industries, and none of it gets siphoned off for shareholders or profit makers because it's owned and run by its members. Past performance, not a reliable indicator of future performance. cbussuper.com.au.
All I can say is 40 years ago when the West Indies were dominating, if only they had invested in CBUS Super, they would be in a much better position as a test team now.
Yep, they might have invested in a few different things that might have helped. Hall of Fame today, just as somebody who likes clean arithmetic, I love the fact that the 100 partnership came up when De Silva and Hodge were both on exactly 50.
Ah, nice.
So there were 3 extras in the partnership, but Hodge was on 3 when the partnership started, so those cancelled each other out. So so Hodge brings up his 50, and in the next over, De Silva brings up his 50 and raises the 100 partnership with his 50th run, while Hodge is still on exactly 50. So beautiful. That all synced up. Anything catch your eye?
A few things, actually. Firstly, because Andrew McDonald tested for COVID, he was sat outside near the fence with they'd given him a little table and a couple of laptop screens, so he had the game going and some stats on the other screen. But because he was sat outside, and you can tally it up with the Australian Open happening in Melbourne, it felt like there were times when Pat Cummins would look at Andrew McDonald and they would have a little discussion. Like it was like courtside coaching, which I think at some levels is not allowed in the Australian Open or in tennis. But you rarely get to see that in cricket because the coach is always in the dressing room or in the dugout or away from the screen or away from the scene. So I thought that caught my eye. Kavem Hodge, he had a lot of issues with cramp, firstly in his left arm and then with his hamstring, and it just struck me that if anyone should have known how to deal with cramp, it should be Kavem Hodge, because he does have a bachelor's degree in I might really fuck this up. Kinesiology, which is the scientific study of human body movement. So, who better than Kavem Hodge to know what is happening with the movement of his human body? And there was one more, which I have completely forgotten. But I think those two really stood out for me. Of course, the Kevin Sinclair thing I did mention earlier, but that was going to be my other thing, that he grew up playing night cricket, and here he is putting on a show, and he looked pretty good. He looked like he belongs in Test cricket. So I'm really looking forward to see him hopefully add some more runs tomorrow morning and then have an impact with the ball.
I also wanted to mention a listener suggestion that came through. Justin Langer at one point talking up how great the West Indies used to be, except he called them Western Australia. Just can't. Some things just will never be moved on from. And the other one, and this was an amazing one. This really tickled me. Is that when it was 29 minutes past, having taken the extra half hour, they were bowling the 89th over. And I was like, hang on a minute, they're actually going to bowl 90 overs. That is correct, yeah. And they did. Hazelwood starts bowling the 90th over of the day. But then with the fourth ball, he gets the edge to slip. The over's called off. And they didn't actually bowl a full 90 overs. So for once, this Australian Test team was going to get through 90 overs in a fucking day. And then it didn't happen. They'll have to bowl 2 balls of the 90th over tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, no, you're right. I mean, the over rate started off pretty good, but then the second session when it was really hot, you could see they kind of fell off. But I thought they did well with Nathan Lyon and Travis Head bowling just before the second new ball, and they nearly caught up. They were about to finish on time. Yeah, I saw the clock as well. At 9:24, the 89th over was about to come to an end. So well done, Australia. Even though, you would like this comparison I made on radio, though. I said over rates are like jaywalking. You know they exist, but nobody, there's no penalties, or at least no penalty that matters or that counts anyway. So now that I've said it,
you wait until you go and walk around Sydney sometime. That's when they take the rookie cops out. That's how they sort of blood them. Is they make them go out and hand out jaywalking tickets because they know that people will arc up and get angry, and then that's how you get used to people yelling at you on your first day, is by being absolute annoying pricks and riling people up for no particular reason. I've seen it done many a time. Haven't really seen it in other cities, but it's definitely a New South Wales police thing. So
there you go.
Yeah, shout out to New South Wales Police, always setting the standard. Roger Rogerson left this planet a few days ago. If you know who he is, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's enough. That is the Final Word Daily Australia West Indies. Day 1 at the Gabba. We'll be back for day 2. CBUSSuper.com.au if you want to sort out your super. And if you like what we're doing, patreon.com/thefinalword is where you can find out more about us. Bharat Sundaresan, Jeff Lemon. See you tomorrow.